username is equal to ng model we defined, and I'm accessing that here username and displaying that username. That means only the material UI presentation is different. Username dot value, we are accessing the username value, it will get that. And here when I entered the username, then it gets that username and display. It can get that username and display. It can get the username and display. I'm entering some username, it will get that and display. Functionality, everything same. There is no change in the functionality and all. Only the point is the way how you present it. So these options will change. So now we need to understand. I will show you the process. So generally, this is not a concept that anybody teaches you all the components and you learn. So 1-2 components, if I show others, you have to explore by yourself, learn by yourself, and implement them in the project. So because all these are third party, I will show you how to explore and how to use a component, how we can use a component. Let's see one example. That means how to learn the components and how to use the components. For example, first step is, I will clean up this all here. So I want a date picker. I want a date picker, a calendar to display, and a date picker from material. I want a date picker from material. Then how we can get that? So first, what you have to do is, you have to go to the official website, material.angular.io. Yesterday, I uploaded a document. In that document, some examples are posted. The process, how to handle. So in the notes, I given that. First, we need to go to this material. In the material component, you can go to the components. In the components, you can see which component you want to implement. So that means I want date picker. Okay, go to this date picker. So this is the date picker component. So here, what is the first step is, when you want to implement any component, so first check the API. First check the API. So for component, check the API for component. So in that website, you have to check the API for the component. So actually, API provides information about the dependencies, what dependencies are required. That means the library required. That means the module. So it provides the information about module and dependencies and properties and methods. That means what are the modules required for your component? What are the dependencies, means other module dependencies, and what properties, what methods it is having. It will give the complete information. You can observe that you can see now here. When you go to the official website, so here you go to API. You want a date picker. So then first you have to go to API. In the API, you see the module in the API, the module required for date picker. The module required for date picker, you can see this module, mat date picker module is required. Okay, fine. But so it will have a lot of properties and dependence. You see here, you have services. You have services. That means in the services, it will provide the services that are available with that date picker. In that you have properties like calendar label, changes, what is the data type of those properties it will display. These are all the properties and their purpose. Now here, when you go scroll down here, you can see the functions and properties defined here, and observe it is having output and date change. That means this is a custom event for that component. Already we learned those custom events. We discussed about the custom events. So value will get the value, and the date change is the event. What are the events available? You can see them and you can understand them. So that means these are the events. Output, with output they have given means these are events. So many properties and options are available. Properties and options are available. But here you need to understand one more option at the last, at the end. Observe here, at the end, when you are trying to use this, at the end, usually it will mention about the interfaces, and it will mention about the details of the component related other properties. That means what it extends and defines. Generally, what we have to learn here is, so when you scroll down, so that means when you scroll down, you will see at the end, it will show any issues are there or not. Issues are there or not. Issues means, generally, issues means is that particular module requires any dependency or not. If dependency is required, which dependency? Without the dependency, will it work or not? So all such information will be provided here. That means when you go at the end of the API, it will give you the information about the issues you may face with this particular component, if there are any issues, because every component has certain dependencies and issues. And if you miss them, so then it cannot work. So that is the reason, if any issues are there, you need to observe that and you need to configure that. So you need to understand about that at the bottom. You need to know about that. So in overview, so you will find various examples how to use it, in various ways how we can use it. It is provided in the overview. And in API, it will give you the complete information about the modules and options configured. Actually, so here, I will show you the issues, how to find out the issues and how to handle them. And in examples, you see different examples are present. You can see the examples, and you can go to the source code. You see here there is a link to copy and a view code. This is the source code. And you can use this source code, and you can copy this source code, and you can implement this in your component. So depending on the requirement, you can configure and define that. So now I will show the simple process, how we can implement. That means what is the HTML code, what is the TS code, what is the CSS code. These are the options defined there for every example. Simple process we will see first. That means how we can handle, how to identify the issues, the options we will see. I will show you the issue also, how you will find that issue. So first step, let's go to this. See, we need a mat date picker module. Okay. So where to configure the modules? At the bottom. So let's go to the app module.ts. And here we need to import that module. So we need to import. So from @Angular /material/date picker. So from material date picker. So we need this module. That means mat date picker module. Okay. So we need to import mat date picker module. Date picker module. So that is the option we are configuring. And we need to register this module. And let's go into the modules and define this mat date picker module. Okay. Now it is ready. Mat date picker module is ready. So, okay. Now we need to implement here. So we need to design the date picker. And to implement the date picker, you can go to this overview. You can go to the overview. In this, you see the basic date picker, and you have date range picker. So many examples are given. So we will go to this basic date picker. I want a date picker like this. I want a date picker like this. And you can go to the source code and you can see what it is using. But first option, first option is we need a mat form field. In the mat form field, we have a mat label. So in the mat label, so select date. So that is the label we are configuring. And this is general. This is the general presentation we have. But we don't have any text box for that. We need to configure the text box and define. Then here we will bind with a input. And we configure this. So type is equal to text. And we will mark it as mat input, and we define in this. So we have a form field and mat input. This is the selected date. Selected date, one option is there. Usually date picker, you see in the source, date picker is having a date toggler. Date toggler is nothing but generally date toggler means that calendar button. Date toggler is the calendar button. We need that calendar button. So we need that calendar button. So let's go here and put that calendar button here. So that means we need a mat date toggler. So mat date toggle, this is required. And this toggle is configured. Mat date picker toggle. So that toggle, you can see that is the button. Toggle, you have two options, prefix, suffix. That means you want left side or right side. So then this toggle, so you can configure as, so mat suffix. I defined as mat suffix. Then automatically, so that will give you right side suffix, prefix, suffix you can define. That is suffix. Toggler is the button. On the button click, I want the date to pick up, the date to open. That means below that, we have to use a mat. So date picker now. We need to put a mat date picker. A mat date picker is kept here. And you see now some problem is there. The problem is mat date picker requires a dependency. It requires a dependency. And that dependency we haven't imported, and we don't know at all about the dependency. We don't know. So now you right click and go to inspect. And in the console, you can see that. So it says that, so null injector, no provider for date adapter. So that means you have a problem with the date adapter. Now let's see how I can get this date adapter. That means there is no provider for date adapter. That means some dependency is missing. If dependency is missing, they say that provider is not there. Provider is not there. Now the question is, let's look for this adapter, date adapter. So go to the API category. in the API category, because lot of content is there. So a lot of content is there. Search here, Control F, I will find here. So date adapter is there. So that means date adapter. So suppose you say adapter. So there is no date adapter. You see here, I am searching for date adapter. There is no date adapter option here. There is no date adapter option here. That means in this list, it is not mentioning anything about the date adapter. So it is not configuring and specifying anything about date adapter. But in the error, it says that so date adapter have some problem. Null injector, no provider for date adapter. So that means this, see, in the detail concept, it says that null injector. So if anywhere, so this null injector issue comes, null injector means, it means that dependency is missing, dependency is missing. Okay. So first we have a clarity that dependency is missing, but we have to find out which dependency it is missing. It is talking about some date adapter. Okay. In the API, I searched date adapter is not there. Okay. Let's go to the overview. In the overview, I am searching here as date adapter. You see, you have a date adapter related options available. You have some options related to date adapter in the overview. You see, this is date adapter. And technically here, observe carefully here, selecting the date, because actually selecting the date. So that means date picker is fine, but date picker allows you to select a date, Technically to select a date, technically to select a date, usually to select a date, you can see that it says that date picker depends on date adapter and provided in your application. And the date adapter comes from native date adapter. Native date adapter is used for date objects. That means in JavaScript, to handle the date objects, you need a date adapter. So in that case, if you don't have a date adapter, date objects cannot be managed. Date picker will present the presentation, but collecting the date and using the date requires this native date adapter. So you have to have this native date adapter in order to use the date picker. Otherwise, it cannot work. That is the point. It's a very clear point. So that means we saw the problem that it requires a date adapter. So, and date adapter requires this native date adapter. So native date adapter. So then I have to go to this. So, and we need to implement that. That means, so here we need to go to the module, and here I am adding one more option. So that is native date adapter. That means this I have to add here, native date adapter. I'm adding native date adapter. But you see, this native date adapter is not a member of this mat date picker. It's not a member of that option. So we still are not clear about this. So then you scroll down here. That means you can see here. That means now we need to understand. So which module is required for this adapter. So I will open the search. You got this native date adapter here. And when I search for the date adapter, it is showing the date adapter requires this. date adapter requires this. But the problem is, so how this date adapter is implemented. And you see the modules that provides for date adapter. These two modules are required: mat date picker module and mat native date module. We need that mat native date module. That is the module required for that. That is the module required for that. So that means now let's go to this here now. So, and we define mat native date module, native date module that is required. Mat native date module is required. But the point here is, so where this mat native date module is available. That means we need to understand what this mat native date module is available. Mat native date module is available. We need to configure that. We need to import. That means it says that it is not a member of this date picker. It is not a member of the date picker. So if it is not a member of the date picker, if it is not a member of date picker, then we need to understand what is the reference for this. What is the reference for this? That means the reference, the module for that particular module. So, and we need to import that according to this. And remember, if anyone asks like why I need this native date module, actually why you need this native date module. So technically you see here, mat native date module. So it's dependency, and you can import from material core. You can import from the material core. So this module you can import from the material core. And why you need it? Why you need this? Because so JavaScript's so date object is not able to access. You cannot access the date object and convert the dates without this module. So you need that module, and you have to import from this Angular material core library. So we got little bit clarity. We identified the problem. We came here, we searched what is the problem, where it is available, and let's go now and let's define that. So I need to import. I need to import. So mat native date module from Angular material core. And after that, so I have to configure this into this location. So mat native date module, and it is defined. Now you can see in the presentation, now the date picker is working. So here we need to still handle on this toggle button click. It's working fine, but on the button click, the picker should open. Still connection is not there. That means, so it's working fine. Now date picker is ready, but on the button click, it should open up. Then how you link this date picker and toggle? Generally in the Bootstrap, you know, in Bootstrap, so what is the attribute that we use for binding? Do you have any idea? In Bootstrap, which attribute is used for binding? Do you know? In Bootstrap, we use the attribute. Suppose we have a button. On button click, so we have an model. We have a model. On the button click, this model should open. Then do you know what attributes we use? Any idea? In Bootstrap, we need some attributes for binding with that. So do you have any idea what is the attributes? What are the attributes used in Bootstrap? Generally, we use the attribute. So data BS toggle is equal to model. You know this, huh? Right? I hope you people who learned Bootstrap, they know that. The latest version of data, this, because this data BS toggle implements a click functionality. And on click, it will access this model. And this will have an ID. ID as suppose, so ID as suppose some register, and ID is register. And here the model, so we have to use another option. And the option is, so data BS target. Target is equal to hash register. So this indicates that on this button click, it will open this model with the ID registered. This is how generally Bootstrap uses the mechanism of binding. Otherwise, on the button click, it cannot pop up this. So we need to bind with these data binding properties. Generally, you have that in Bootstrap. In Bootstrap, we use this mechanism. Similarly, in material also, you have to do that. That means now you have a toggle and you have a date picker, and toggle is not linked with the date picker, then date picker will not open. So then you see now the official source. In the official source, let's go to the top and let's see the basic one example here. Yeah. In the basic example, you can see that. You can see here. So this date picker is working for is an attribute. This is a property. Generally, here we use target. Target is for this particular model. Toggle is for this particular model. Now here, so in material, these two things we define. So by using a for attribute, for property, for indicates for which element it should work. It should work for this div. That means now this div needs a reference. And you know in Angular how you give the reference. That means in Angular how you give the reference for this. That means we will use hash. Suppose I give the name as picker. You can give any name. This is the ID. This is the ID for date picker. Now the date picker should work for that. The date picker should work for that. That means now this toggle button should work for this picker. Then we have to just use for whom, for picker. That is how we need to configure. It should work for the picker. So we need to configure that and define. So this is usually defined and configured. And now once you do this, that means this button is binded with this and it can access and use. Still, it's not done. You see now, it is now ready. Now what happens here is, when I click on this, the calendar have to pop up. And that calendar, after it pops up, so generally when the calendar pops up, the selected date must be displayed there. That means we need to still bind it with the text box. We need to still bind with the text box. That means here what we have to do now, you see, it is not binded with the text box so that it can work for the text box. It is toggle is ready. Toggle is ready. It is not binded with the text box. And you see next option here, you can bind the text box with mat date picker. Mat date picker allows you to invoke the date picker. Mat date picker allows to invoke the date picker through the text box, and collects its value and uses the value. Collects the value and uses the value. That is the approach it will follow. That means now what we are doing here. So let's go. And for the mat input, here we are defining. So mat date picker is equal to, it should use that picker. It should use that picker. So this is the approach we need to configure. Now this will open the calendar. And whenever you choose any date from the calendar, it will put the date into that location. So this is the approach how you design a component. So designing a material component is not so simple and easy as it looks. It's not like just you go there, copy and paste the code, because a lot of dependency issues will come. And you, as a developer, you need to explore. Remember, this is not a concept that somebody teaches you and you use it. You will not find anywhere people explaining you about all the material components online or on YouTube, anywhere. You will not find every component explained, because it's a very lengthy process that is need to be explored by the developers, and they keep on changing regularly because every new version, some new features will come. They will be keep changing very regularly. In that case, we must be aware of how to explore by ourselves, and hundreds of components and styles are present. In that case, all are not required for you, depending on the situation, depending on the requirements. So you must implement them and use them. You must implement and use them. So otherwise, so because hundreds of components are present, so you don't need to use every component. So only the components that are required, we implement them and configure that. So now you must able to explore these components by yourself. You must able to explore the components. That means simple. So you can go to the, suppose I want icons. Then let's go to the icon category. So icon category. So you have these icons. This is, so the icon. I want this icon. So these are all just like bootstrap icons I showed you. So these are icons. Now you can see, so go to the source. Generally for icon, it uses a matte icon. And matte icon just uses these names which are important for icons. You will get the named icons, the icon sets, everything, icon sets, everything here. That means primary, ascent, warning. These are the colors used for the icons. What are the different icons available, how to configure them. It will give the list of icons. Just you need this matte icons. But important is first you have to know how to register these icons. Matte icons, how we can implement, go to API. What is the module required? The module required for icon is matte icon module from material icon. And you can explore all the properties the icons are having, how you can get the various icons and implement them. And the API references, you can see the API references. It will show all the dependencies required for that, how to implement and use them. Now, once you know this, then you can implement in your page. That means, suppose I want a simple button here. Suppose I want a simple button here, and I want to display the material icon here. So I want to define a material icon. Then you can just go with, so matte icons. So here we have a matte icon module. So matte icon module, first import that, right? So I will import the matte icon module. So import, so matte icon module. So from yeah. So from Angular / material / icon, from material icon. Yeah. So from here you have to import matte icon module. Okay. And configure this here, matte icon module. You need to define matte icon module. Matte icon module. Okay. Now, once it is there, then if you want to implement that and present in your page, then you need to just use these matte icons. So here I said, so some missed calls, something like this. And here I defined, so that is a general button. Here we are having just button. And so this will put a break here. Fine. Yeah. And here we have to use, so matte icon. And I use like phone, that is the names. These are the icon names. Generally, Bootstrap provides the class names. Now this will give the reference names. Just we need to configure those names. That means I say phone, so I say some bell, something like this. So that means there is no bell. So here I said, suppose home. And you see these icons are displayed there. Now you can get the list of all the icons inside this API reference. What are the names provided, how we can implement them. So this is angular material components. So you can use these material components and you can implement these materials. So all options are available. For example, same like Bootstrap now. So suppose I want to implement a model. You see, you have a dialog. Generally in Bootstrap, you have models, and here you have dialogues. This is dialog. And if you want to implement this dialog, so dialog is nothing but it will pop up like this. You can display something and okay, it will select. Now, if you want such dialogues, then you see this is the view code, and you have the dialogues configured here, and the dialogues are defined in a simple way. So actually, to configure the dialogues and define the dialogues, we have to use this reference. That means just we need to implement this option. So you see, we have the form field and the name and the marked form field. And for dialog, you see this is the button on click open dialog. And a dialog must open and display when user clicks on that. So on pick one, so a dialog should open. In the dialog, it should display the content. It should display the content. Then how the configuration for the dialog is written, the logic, how it is written. So height, width, how you configure. This is how we have to write. Dialog open, and a dialog open, which component it should open. And in that, so what is the height and width for that, you can configure. These are all the functionalities. These are all the functionalities configured for that. And what are the modules required? It will display the modules required. Dependency, you have to check in the APIs and references and check the module required for it, import and use it. So you must able to now try to implement some of these components like badges, like buttons, like cards. So all these you can try now. You can try. So these are the components that we have in Angular. Now, this others you try by yourself. You check these cards, models by yourself. And if you face any problem, let me know. I will explain how to resolve them. Okay, already I showed you how to explore by yourself and how to resolve the problems. So material is not only just providing, so UI, material is not only providing UI, material is also providing UX, user experience. Angular material is also providing user experience. You just saw the UI. That means you saw the UI, how the UI is working. You seen that. So, but actually it is not just UI. So it is having the UX. It is having the user experience. So technically, you need to know the user experience. You need to know the user experience. So user experience is nothing but, so for example, user experience like lazy loading. So I told you unified experience, fluid experience, all this comes under user experience. Angular material is not only just providing the UI that you have seen, it is also providing the user experience also. Now, how we implement this user experience? Generally, to implement this user experience, you have to know about the material. Material have another concept. Material components are there, and material have another concept, CDK. Material, another option is there, CDK. CDK is nothing but actually this component development kit. Material is component development kit, and material is designing the component. It is designing component. And CDK is giving behavior for component. Behavior for component. So behavior for component. So we have two options. One is defining the component and specifying the behavior for component. These are the two important options. So you have seen how to design a component. So we need how to give the behavior for the component. We call this as CDK. Let's see one simple example. That means how we can implement. I will show you a simple example how we can implement lazy loading. Lazy loading is nothing but, so for example, you see just like Google. In Google search, suppose we are searching for Angular and so many Angular came. So this here you can observe that it shows pages. It says 10 per page. It is showing some results. At the bottom, it will say you have the page numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 page numbers will come. But if you go to image search, millions of images came, but we don't have any page numbers here. Usually what happens is all the million images are not loaded actually. Now what happens is when you scroll down, it is going to open the next set of images. When you scroll down, it is going to load the next set of images. That means it is not loading all the images at a time. It is loading only what is necessary for that page. And it will load the next set only when you scroll down. This is very good. We call this lazy loading. If we have to implement such lazy loading and present it, lot of logic is required. Lot of design patterns we need to implement. Lazy loading is a design pattern. Lot of design patterns we have to implement. In Angular, they provided a CDK now. This CDK provides a behavior for the component in such a way that it implements lazy loading. So that means, so material component is design of component and material CDK is behavior for component. For that, we will see how to implement this lazy loading. CDK will provide a virtual scroll. It will provide a virtual scroll viewport. CDK is going to provide a virtual scroll viewport. This virtual scroll viewport is going to display your content in such a way. That means you know that in CSS, viewport purpose is to make responsive. You know that in CSS, viewports are used for making responsive designs. So when you learned your CSS, I hope you have learned about viewport also, how to configure the meta viewports and define a responsive page, how to create a responsive page. So CDK virtual scroll viewport, makes your content responsive. And actually to read and load all the contents from a collection. So generally we use ng for. This ng for is not a lazy loader. So it is not a lazy loader. It will read all of them one by one. But now we can use instead of ng for CDK virtual for. This CDK virtual for will implement lazy loading. That means it will load only few elements that fits to the screen, and other elements it will not iterate until or unless user scroll down. That's very good. That means now this gives a good functionality to your component. That gives a more additional functionality to your component. So this is what generally we call as user experience. Let's see one simple example. That means how it can be configured, how it can be defined. One example we will see for that. So let's design this. That means how to implement that. So I will say some lazy loading. Lazy loading, how we can implement this lazy loading. So let's go to the material, and we need some collection of data now here. So let's create products is an array of objects. And here we have name, some JBL, some speaker, and we have some photo. So it is in assets. So assets slash speaker dot jpg. Okay. So similarly, we have some name. So some earpods. Okay. Some photo and some assets slash some earpods dot jpg. So I will first create 5-6 random images here, some Nike casuals, and here we have photo, and we have assets, so some shoe.jpg, and name. So, and here because you need so lot of images, so a lot of content here. Otherwise, you cannot experience that. So shoe one lazy loading dot jpg. Okay, next we have name, and this is shirt and a photo and assets slash shirt dot jpg. Okay, and one more here name, and we have jeans and a photo, and here we have jeans assets jeans dot jpg and dot jpg, and here I will copy this copy, and let's paste that. So let's paste that here. So that means I'm pasting some hundreds of images here. So that means now lot of images are present and some lot of content is present. Let's keep in this way. Okay. Now I need to load this and display inside the page. Generally, we use an normal ng for and display inside the container. Now, how we can manage that? How we can implement here? Just what we have to do is we have to define this time CDK virtual scroll, but for that we have to import it. So let's go to the app module. In the app module, this time we have to import another module. So import from, this time we have to import from @Angular /CDK. From Angular CDK, in CDK, you have scrolling. So CDK scrolling. In the CDK scrolling, you have so scrolling module. We have to import that scrolling module. And we need to implement that scrolling module here. So we have scrolling module. Okay. Now this will provide you to handle so CDK virtual scroll viewport. This is provided. Now this virtual scroll viewport, you have to define so size, how much size you want. It uses a property item size. Item size, suppose we given 100. That is the item size we configured. That is the height actually, but it will not load 100 elements. You will see that according to the container height, it will load the content. So now we are using inside that, we want to display some content. Inside it. So for this, we can keep height and width, how much you want for the content here. We can configure. Suppose for this viewport, you want height and width, then you can just add simply style. So width is equal to some 300 pixel and the height is equal to some 300 pixel. Okay, some border as a 2 pixel solid border, and some padding is some 5 pixel. We can add some padding and all these options configured there, right? So technically this is defined now, right? Yeah. Once you defined and configured this, and now inside this, we need a iterator. Generally, I want to display a card. So you can see this is the output here. I want to display a card inside this. So div, I will keep this class is equal to, this is a ordinary card. This is a bootstrap one. You can use that card. And I want this card to iterate. Generally, previously we were using ng for. Now we will use CDK virtual for. CDK virtual for. Logic is same. LET item of collection. Collection is products. Now for every item, we need to read that content and display. Product, so item of, we need to display. Now here I will add an image. So in the card, I am adding an image. So image have a source. Source is item.photo. So item.photo, we configured that. And we define some height. Height is equal to some 50. And the class is equal to card image top. Card image top. I applied that. And below this, we will keep a div. And inside this, we give the class as card body. So class card body. And here we will display item.name. So the item name will be displayed. Just in a heading, we will keep some heading 2. So item name is displayed there. That's it. That means now you are using a virtual scroll and we are configuring a virtual for. This implements the virtual scrolling in your application. Adjust the height and width according to the requirements. You can configure that. So that means the width is some set to 200 pixel. That is fine. It will be in this way. Now you see, interesting part here is you see 1, 2, 3, 4 items are coming. So when I go to inspect, in the inspect, so go to this container. This is a container. Open that container. And a CDK virtual scroll. Okay, open it. In that you have so virtual scroll wrapper. You see here, you have a flexible contents and you see only 4 items are loaded here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items are loaded here. You see only 5 divs are here. 1, 2, 3, and below 4 and 5, 2 items more are loaded there. That means only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards are loaded. But actually you have a lot of content here. But it is loading only 5 cards initially. You see it is loading only 5 cards. Observe carefully these divs now. Observe carefully the divs while I am scrolling. When I am scrolling down, you can see 2 more divs added. You see 2 more divs added. So that means automatically now when I am scrolling, the new contents are added. And the previous contents are removed automatically. You see the previous contents are gone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are there now per screen. Above the contents are gone. Now. So again, I scroll up. Again, it will be like this. So observe carefully when the page loads. So initially, this virtual scroll have only 5 cards configured here. When I scroll down, the next 2 cards will open. Remember, it depends on how fast you are scrolling. You see now, actually, I will open this and I am scrolling here. Observe carefully. I am scrolling using the up-down scroll button. When I click up-down scroll button, down scroll button, you will see only 2 items added. I scroll by using up-down scroll button more. I am using up-down scroll button more. You will see that only few items, only 2 items are added. Only 2 items are additionally added. But I hold the scroll button and drag the scroll button down. You see more items are added. You see the more items are added. When I am scrolling down, the more items are added. So it depends on how you are displaying. The intention is to load only what screen can show. So others keep them waiting in the memory. That means whenever you require, then they will load. This is lazy loading. This is lazy loading. So this is possible with the help of these components, configuring and working with these components. So that is the CDK. Material provides both options. Material provides the designing of component and giving behavior for the component. So CDK is for giving the behavior for the components. So this is generally how we can implement lazy loading in our application. This is very common, very regularly used options. This makes the performance better for your application, This is materials. Now you have to explore all these materials by yourself, and you need to practice and try these materials and implement them. These notes related to material already I uploaded. These examples also already there. CDK and other examples also already there. I uploaded into the classroom note. You can check them. Already these examples also there. Now you have to try the other components by yourself. Now, once you are aware of that, that means now we have learned so the concept of how to work with components. Now we need to understand very important component life cycle hooks. This is one major topic for interviews. Generally in interviews for Angular people, they ask several questions on this life cycle. That means you learned everything about component, but you have to know that component will have a life cycle, and that life cycle comprises of several phases. So how the component starts and how the component ends, and what are the various phases of this component cycle, that we need to understand. That we will see in our next session. Tomorrow we will discuss about that. And don't miss tomorrow's session, because this is very important as interview point of view. Lot of questions are asked for beginner experienced people in Angular interviews. Main topic concentrated is the life cycle hooks. So we have to understand about them, right? Tomorrow we will see. Okay.